There are 22 people on the football field, but who are these people and what are they doing? Welcome to another episode of First and Learning, Cori's Corner Football Podcast, where we learn about American football. So whether you are an avid fan and you know a lot about American football, or whether you are just brand new and you want to learn some more about football, this is the podcast for you. We got a good one today. We're going to be talking about the players and positions on the field. So by the end of this podcast, you should be able to look at any formation and be able to identify the major positions in each one of the available units. Okay. Welcome. My name's Cori from Cori's Corner. If you follow me on social media, you already know what it is. Okay. We learn football here. There are no dumb questions. There are no dumb downs, as we would like to call it. And that's what we'll do in this episode. We're going to talk about player positions. We did have some submissions to No Dumb Downs. And that's a segment where you can submit a question. No dumb questions here. And if you put your name on it, I will give you a shout out in the show. You don't have to. You can do so anonymously. But if you do, I'll give you a shout out in the show. And you can do that by going to any one of my social media pages, clicking the links in the bio. You will see the form there for dumb downs or no dumb downs. Also, make sure if you're watching this on YouTube and or listening in your car, make sure you hit subscribe and the bell button so that you know when I go. Sorry, I took a little 2-week hiatus. I was on vacation. I went to beautiful Maine. If you've never been to the state of Maine, I am not from Maine, so going there was a wonderful vacation. It was great. So I usually take a vacation around this time right before the football season starts, because when football season starts, I am locked in, as I know that you are locked in as well. And my content actually goes up. The amount of content that comes out goes up. So also very thankful for anybody who has already subscribed on Patreon. So if you want to, what do you get for being on Patreon? You get things early. You get other behind the scenes things that the public won't get, like transcripts, other potential videos, one-on-one shout outs, things like that. So if you want to be a member of the huddle, go ahead over to patreon.com, search Cori's Corner, select what tier you think makes the most for you. And let's create a community of people who just want to learn football so that you can enjoy the sport that you love and maybe everybody else loves as well. Anyway, all that's out the way. Let's get into it. It's hard for me sometimes to structure what to talk about first, right? Do we go through the rule books? Do we go through positions? Do we go through play? So I'm super excited about today's. Also, you will get another episode coming very shortly. That is, again, just going over the rule book. So some episodes are just strictly rule book episodes. Some episodes are episodes like this where we're actually learning other things about the game. Now, this is a twofer, right? Because what I'm going to tell you today is also in the rule book, which is explaining the positions. And so the caveat and the thing that you really need to know, if we're going to start there, so let's start there, is that there are 3 major units in the game of football, okay? Offense, defense, special teams. Write it down, take a picture, remember it in your mind's eyes. Offense, defense, special teams. Well, the offense, as you might know, tries to move and score the ball. That's their main role. That's what they want to do. They want to put points on the board. The defense, in contrary, is trying to stop the offense and create some turnovers to make sure that their team's offense can get the ball. And then what does that leave, right? That leaves the special teams to do all the kicking, the punts, the punt returns, playing the field position game. Once we talk a little bit more about strategy, we'll talk about field position. But that's what special teams means. And so I want to clarify that those 3 units can be on the field at any time. And at the time that they're on the field, they can have up to 11 players. So what do I mean by that? When the offense is on the field, you can have up to 11 players. You can't have more. When the defense is on the field, you can have up to 11 players. You can't have more. Now, the offense is a little bit trickier because there's a certain amount of people who have to be on the line of scrimmage. So there's somewhat a built-in minimum for how many people need to be on the offense. But either way, when special teams is on the field, when the offense is on the field, when defense is on the field, you can have up to 11 players. So that's why we say there's 22 people on the field, because at any time, there are 2 units on the field, right? There's Team A's unit, maybe of offense, and then Team B's unit of defense. Or there's Team A's of defense and Team B's of offense. Or there's Team A of special team and Team B special teams. Sometimes they mix. Team A special team, Team B defense, right? So it's a little bit of a mix. Generally speaking, when special teams is on, it's both sides special team. But sometimes you can get some pretty nifty and interesting things. Either way, remember those 3 units because we're going to talk about the positions within each unit. We're going to start with offensive unit and offensive positions. Then we'll move to defense, and then we'll talk about special team. And then we'll get into no dumb downs. Are you ready? I'm ready. Let's get into it. Now, I say this all the time. If you are listening, continue to listen. I will try my best to do great depictions of what I'm explaining. But if you are watching, you may just have this on in your background on your TV. Here's when you're going to want to switch over and look what's on the screen because we're going to look at pictures as I explain each position on offense, on defense, and on special teams. So you can kind of see. Well, actually, I just do offense and defense. Special teams is fairly easy because all you really need to know is who's snapping, who's holding, who's kicking. But we're going to start with offense, so let's get into it. If you're in the tube or anywhere else, Facebook, shout out to Facebook, man. I love Facebook. The community on Facebook, fantastic, man. Fantastic. All right. So if you are looking at the screen, you will be able to see this is the game against the Chargers and the Giants. The Chargers are in white. The Giants are in blue. And the Chargers are on offense and the Giants are on defense. But we're going to start and talk about offense first. Now, the most prime position on offense, let's see if we can get a little tool in here, right? Is this guy right here, the quarterback. You probably know the quarterback. The quarterback gets the most shine out of everybody. He's the person who receives the snaps. He communicates to play. He throws the ball. He can hand off the ball. He can also run the ball. He's the most important chessboard member or chess piece on the chessboard, right? He's the person who's going to read the defense, who may change the play before the snap. He is the leader of the ship, the captain of the team, or at least the offense, captain of the unit, right? He's the big dog. That is the quarterback. This happens to be Justin Herbert. Oftentimes, the quarterbacks are the stars of the team or the divas or whatever else, the highest paid. You want to do everything at all costs to protect your quarterback. Quarterback also goes by QB for short, letter QB. So if you hear QB or quarterback, then that's what they're referring to. The general. Okay, so you know that. You probably already knew that, but that's okay. We're going to go through every single position. All right, so who's standing next to the quarterback in the backfield? Remember, we've already established what is the line of scrimmage and stuff if you followed around, but in the backfield with the quarterback, who's standing next to the quarterback, sometimes stands behind the quarterback, is the running back. So let's get our marker back up. Let's circle the running back. Here's this running back. Okay, what does the running back do? The running back, or RB for short, can take a handoff, so he can be handed the ball from the quarterback or somebody else. He can run a route for a pass and catch a pass. He may also help protect the quarterback, so he can stay in and block in case somebody's blitzing or something like that. And he can line up either beside or behind the quarterback. Okay, so he is technically an eligible receiver, but he's a running back. So most of the time used to run the ball. But in today's game, in today's day and age, the running back is a very versatile position. They do a lot. And having a very good running back is paramount to really having a good team. Now, most running backs are not great at blocking. Ever so often, though, you'll get a running back who's pretty good at blocking. Or they're like like a triangle, right? Like you can have 2 of the 3 things. They're the great at running, great at catching, or great at blocking. You can have 2 of those things, but you can't really have the third one. So if you want like somebody who's a good blocker and a good runner, they're probably not a good catcher. If you want somebody who's a good catcher and a good blocker, they're probably not a good runner. But ever so often you have some people who are out there who are great running backs who can do all of those things. You never have to worry about them. All right, so we know the QB, quarterback, and we know the running back, the RB. Let's move down to, I'm going to use the offensive line before we get into the receivers. Okay, so this little unit right here, these 5 big, beefy guys in white, that's your offensive line. Okay, I like to call them the fat boys. That's what they called us growing up. So we're going to explain this. There's a guy who stands over the ball. He holds the ball. Every single play he touches the ball, he snaps the ball. He is right here, right in the center of the line. And guess what his name is? Guess what the name of his position is? Center. That's what it's called. That's the position that I play. The position I love so much and covet so much, keep near and dear to my heart, is center. I do believe it's one of the harder positions to play in football. I may be a little biased, and that's okay. Anyway, so what does a center do? Let's talk about this. The center's main job is to make sure that people are aligned right on the line. And what I mean by that is that he has, he's far enough away from the football that he can establish a good neutral zone and make sure that he knows the snap count, has the correct snap count so he can snap the ball on time, whether the quarterback's in shotgun or under center, where he just snaps the ball right between his legs directly back to the quarterback who's right underneath him, or the shotgun when the quarterback is backed up. His job is to make sure that that ball gets back there safely on time. And what I mean by on time is on the right snap count. Sometimes the snap count is on 1. Sometimes the snap count is on 3. Sometimes there is no snap count, and he is able to snap the ball whenever he is ready to snap the ball because somebody has let him know that the quarterback is ready to snap the ball. It's a lot to think of. Now, there are also some systems where the center is responsible for working with the quarterback to figure out what the pass protection is, right? Most of the time you see the quarterback call out pass protection and who's identifying the Mike linebacker and stuff like that. Sometimes it's a relationship between the center and the quarterback. There are some times where it is the center's job to be able to call that out, right? So very, very good position, but that is his job. Now, to the left and to the right of the centers, those are guards, immediate left, immediate right. The first player on the left and the first player on the right they're called guards. So on the left, you have a left guard, and on the right, you have a right guard. It's not much to tell you about these players when it comes to them being offensive linemen. Their job is to block and protect, okay? Whether it be pass block or run block, block and protect. Block for the running back, protect the quarterback. That's their job. Now, granted, because they're inside blockers, and we'll talk about inside versus outside, they're generally more beefier, maybe not as tall as the tackles, but they're a little bit wider, maybe like really, really strong because they have to contend with the inside defensive linemen who tend to be beefier and stronger. So those are the real fat boys. Us three, the center's a little bit more thin, but the guards, you want your guards kind of short, stocky, and strong. You got a good short, strong guards. Short by NFL standards, not by my standard, right? Short might be 6'2" for NFL. Then you working with somebody, right? A good skill for all offensive linemen is to have good feet, to be able to move your feet very well. But there we go. You have the center and you have your guards, left guard and your right guard. Now, outside of the guards, you have tackles. So on the left side, what would it be? A left tackle. And on the right side, it would be a right tackle. So if we're looking at the offensive line, we have a center. On the immediate right and left of the center, you have guards. And then on the immediate right and left, right or left of the guards, you would have tackles, left tackle or right tackle. Now, I'm going to highlight them here. This is who we're talking about. Here are 2 tackles. That circle's huge. I'm sorry. Here are 2 tackles right here. Now, there's a difference between the right tackle and left tackle and what they really mean for a certain player or quarterback. But these are premier positions. I need you to understand this if you're listening or you're watching. Not all positions are created equal. They just are not. Centers, is it good to have a great center? It is. Look at the Jason Kelsey of the world. Shout out to and rest in peace, Nick Mangold. I love him. He was like one of the first centers who was drafted in the first round. He ended up passing away, I think, last year. But anyway, having a good center, Marcus Pouncey, having a good center is great. Having a great tackle is better. It is better. They typically get paid more money if they are good to great tackles. Why? Let me tell you why. So the tackle, you kind of work on an island. You're basically, for the most part, a one-on-one player. You don't get a lot of help. You can be the help most of the time, but you are typically on an island by yourself. And particularly if you're the left tackle, for most quarterbacks are right-handed, then you are what they would call like the money tackle or blindside tackle. The blindside tackle is this. When the quarterback who's right-handed catches the ball and he drops back, right? The left side of his body and his back is exposed because he's not looking that way. He's typically turned sideways and he's looking either down the middle of the field or more to the right until he can look back to his left, right? But his blind side would be technically his left side because he's turning away from that side of the field. And so you need to really have a good left tackle who understands the responsibility that he has to be one-on-one and to protect that side, because you never want your quarterback getting smashed in the back. That's why left tackles and blindside tackles who are really good, they get paid big money. You want to keep them. If you have a great left tackle, you treat them well. They want money, you give them money. Okay, they want Christmas gifts, you give them Christmas gifts. You do what you can to keep these players because they are very vital to the operation of the offense. Same goes for right tackles if you have a really good right tackle. One I can think about right now is Philadelphia Eagles' very own Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson is an incredible Hall of Fame right tackle. I don't think Lane Johnson has had help since he started. He is a almost purely one-on-one player. Also, these tackles typically go against the best players on the defense, the least defensive line. They typically go against the best players, and they're one-on-one. So I need my best player, my dog, to be one-on-one with your dog. That's why the tackle position is kind of premier. They tend to be taller. We're talking 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". Have longer arms. They're a little bit different build than the guards, and that's what you kind of want. That doesn't mean you can't be a successful tackle and be shorter. It just means if we're talking about the prototype for a position, this is the prototype of what a tackle may look like. Tall, agile, longer arms, great strike, good core and trunk to be able to stabilize if they need to stabilize. Whereas on the inside of the line, you can have them to be a little bit shorter, a little bit stouter, right? So that is the offensive line. Your centers, your two guards, your two tackles. And now we're going to move to the receiving core. And because we're going to move to the receiving core, I'm going to share another screen, and it's going to be a different type of angle. So once again, if you are looking, you want to put your eyes towards the screen. If you're listening, that's okay. I will describe it. This is a game that is the Patriots versus the Carolina Panthers. The Patriots are on offense. The Panthers are on defense. The Patriots are in blue, and the Panthers are in white. So let's look at the receiving core. Sorry. I'm going to start with the tight end. So the tight end, I'm going to circle this person. Here's a tight end. And if you're looking at the screen right now, you're seeing the tight end who's kind of on the line of scrimmage. And you're thinking to yourself, or close to the line of scrimmage, is he a lineman? Is he a receiver? He looks close to the line of scrimmage. Well, why would he's kind of like an extra tackle? Is he a receiver, though? Because he kind of has a number that looks like a receiver number. Maybe he can catch the ball. And the question is, if you're asking those questions to yourself, the answer is yes to all of them. So the tight ends, they're kind of like a running back. They block. They can go out to catch passes, and or maybe a rare occasion they can do like an end-around run. But they're eligible receivers who tend to be a little bit beefier, a little bit taller, to help with if they need to go in and block, they can be a sustainable extra blocker. But if also you need another receiver, they can go catch the ball. Now, tight ends usually work maybe not so far wide out. They're still, when they're going to catch the ball, they're usually working towards the middle of the field. They're a very big, nice target. I like to say safety net for a lot of quarterbacks. It's great being a tight end. I also played tight end in high school. Tight end is a good position to be if you know what you're doing, especially if you played offensive line before. And so you have like the blocking down already. And then if you learn how to catch very well, or you're a good catcher already, it's great. You're going to run similar routes to the wide receiver, maybe not the entire route tree because you're probably not as fast as these receivers, but a tight end is not a bad position. So the tight end you're looking at is circled in red kind of at the top of the screen. He's closer to the line now, and you just don't know. He could be going out for a pass, or he could be blocking. That to me kind of makes it a very cool position, right? You have to really read your keys on defense to make sure you know what this tight end is doing so that you can defend this tight end the way they're supposed to defend him. So the tight end could be an offensive lineman. The tight end could be a receiver. A little bit of both. Shout out to the tight ends. So, I forgot to tell you the abbreviations for the other positions. So center, the abbreviation will be C, right? We talked about QB, RB, or H-back sometimes. Halfback, H-back. Center will be C. The guards are G, obviously, but then you see a RG or left G for right guard, left guard. The tackles would be T, or you see a RT or a left T for right tackle, left tackle. Tight end, what do you think it is? If we're following a pattern, what would you think it is? The tight end would be a TE. And then we have wide receivers. Now, wide receivers are a little bit different because you can have an X, a Y, a Z, and other letters. And we'll talk about that at a later date. I don't want to confuse you right now. Wide receivers are receivers. That's their main function. Their main function is to go out for a pass. And I'm going to circle them on the screen. Oops, I didn't know you can do that on here. Oh, that's cool. You can go out for a pass or line up wide or inside, and they go out to receive a pass from the quarterback. That is their main function. That does not mean that they don't do other things. They also block on run plays, right? When they know they're not going to get a pass. Sometimes they just do like a decoy. They know the ball's not really coming to them, but they're going to try to run off a receiver. Either way, their main objective is to be able to run down the field, to catch the ball, and then after that, it's a skill position. So make some moves and let's see if we can get extra yardage. Yards after catch. Let's see if you can make it into the end zone. Those are wide receivers, or WRs for short. You might also see something called the slot receiver or a slot. That's usually a receiver who's lined up a little bit more inside. Like this might be a slot right now, slot player. If this tight end was off the ball, he might be kind of in the slot. But then you have some receivers who that's where they live. That's what they're known for, is being a receiver who plays in the slot. That's also not, and it's a very niche position to be in. There's a lot that happens in the middle of the field. There's a lot of traffic, so being able to navigate that traffic to get to where your spot's supposed to be, sometimes it is a skill. You can learn it, but it's a skill to have. And so a shout out to slot receivers and wide receivers. That's their job. Now, their build is typically much slimmer than all your other players. If you're wide out, you kind of want them to be a little bit taller. These are fast players. Their job is to play fast, to be fast, to play fast, to run crispy routes, and to catch footballs that are thrown to them. So that is the offensive unit. Okay, your quarterback, your running back, your tight end, your offensive line, which we talked about, centers, guards, tackles, and then your wide receiver. That makes up the 11 players, if you were to count on the screen, of the offense. Now, like I said, just because you have 11 players on the offense doesn't mean it's always going to be the same 11 players, right? And if you've been on my page before, we've talked about personnel before, meaning a tight end isn't always going to be on the field. You may want to add another wide receiver. Or you may want to take away another wide receiver and add more beef, so you add another tight end on the field. Or maybe you don't want any running backs on the field and you want all wide receivers on the field. So you have 5 wide receivers on the field and then 5 offensive linemen and 1 quarterback. It's a makeup of these different positions that will actually equal to 11 based on what you as a coach are looking at or trying to achieve at the time. That's why I love football so much, because it really is chess. It's not about just like, okay, I gotta have 1 running back. I gotta have 1 tight end. I need to have 3 wide receivers. I need to have 5 offensive linemen. No, you need to have 5 offensive linemen for sure. And then after that, you start to mix and match based on the matchups and the things that you have studied to prepare for the defense that you are facing. So that was offense. I know maybe it was a lot. I hope you took some notes. But let's switch over to the defensive side, because it can get a little treacherous on defense too, man. Get a little treacherous on defense too. Hey, get a little treacherous on defense too. Oh, anyway, my bad. I like to do that a lot, man. I just break out in song. So let's talk about defense. And I'm going to share my screen again. So if you're watching, turn your headphones up. Anybody get that reference? You get that reference, I might send you something. Okay. On defense, it's somewhat similar to offense, but obviously there are different defensive terms. So we're back. If you're watching, we are back on the screen looking at the Chargers versus the Giants game. So remember, Giants are on defense. And so we've been through the offense and you're looking at it. You see the offensive formation, you know who's on the field. Now let's talk about defense. Now you have your defensive line. That's a unit. Okay, so I'm going to circle them right here. Some might even not count 0 as a lineman. But this is your unit. There's 4 what we may call down linemen. Okay, that's your defensive line. Now, inside your defensive line, there's different terminology for how you can differentiate who is who, what position is what position. So You have this big this is Dexter Lawrence, Sexy Dex. Y'all seen the dance? You ever seen the Sexy Dex dance before? I'm doing the dance if you're a listener. But if you've ever seen that dance, this is him. Great football player. I think he got traded though, or he was released and signed with somebody else. But anyway, he's not on the Giants anymore. Great football player. He, for lack of better terms, or at least for what would be very easy for you to understand instead of looking at this right now, he's what we would call a defensive tackle. So I want you to just know this before we go any further. There on the defensive line, you have ends and you have tackles. That's confusing, right? Because on offense, you have guards and you have tackles. But on defense, you have tackles and you have ends. And even in the tackle, though, you can get into nose guards because some people might argue right now he's a nose guard. I would argue he's a tackle playing a very specific technique. But you have tackles and then you have ends. The tackles play more inside of the offensive line, around the center and the guard. That's usually where you're going to find the tackles. And if we look at it right now, we have Sexy Dex. I gotta say that. You know what I'm saying? Y'all might be pausing it, but I gotta say it. You got Sexy Dex, and then you have this player right here. They are connected to these three linemen. Look, they're closer to the three linemen than there are really anybody else. Those are your tackles. Okay. And then you have ends, and ends are typically on the end of the defensive line. Whoop-de-doo, kind of crazy, huh? Here's your two ends. They are the ones who I was talking about earlier who go one-on-one with the tackle. They're typically really good players. Myles Garrett is a defensive end. J.J. Watt was a defensive end, even though some people, we can get to like, are you an end or a linebacker? Whatever. Micah Parsons was a linebacker that kind of converted to a defensive end and then kind of still played linebacker. Defensive end is a premier defensive position when you are a great defensive end because you're one-on-one. And if you can cook one-on-one, you're going to get sacks. And sacks translate to money, 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 money. Now let's talk about the build of these players. Tackles, because they are inside. Do you see the difference between Sexy Dex and my boy over here, Spider-Man? They're like two different players. Sexy Dex is huge. That is a large human being, a very large human being. I kind of want to look up right now how big he is, man. Hold on. Dexter Lawrence, 6'4", 340. You know, sometimes when I hear the height and weight of these players, you know, the dream I had of playing in the NFL, I just know that was not going to actualize. There's no way I'm blocking Dexter Lawrence. There's no way I'm blocking a Vita Vea, Aaron Donald. Right? Like, I'm not blocking these people, bro. Anyway, 6'4", 340. That's why you want, remember I said earlier, the offensive linemen, you kind of want them interior ones to be a little beefier. This is why you want them to be beefier. Because the defense is going to have some beefier people on the inside trying to stop that run. There's a reason. If you want to run it inside, well, you're going to have to get around the beef. Because if you play one of these scrawny boys on the inside, they're going to get manhandled, and there's going to be holes that you can drive your truck through. And if you give a hole like that to Saquon Barkley, 90-yard touchdown. So, of course, you're going to go get big, beefy players who can stuff up the middle and who can shut down that run. So their build is taller and bigger, sometimes shorter, but bigger. And these defensive linemen, these tackles, they're strong. These are some strong boys, okay? Some very strong men. Because they get double teamed often. They're getting blocked by two people often, almost every play. So they have to be able to sometimes work both people with one hand. Pause all of that. But they got to do that with one hand. It's crazy. Then if you look out to the ends, let's look at the ends. The ends are, them boys are skinny. Tall and skinny. Tall, lanky, skinny speedsters. Now, don't get me wrong. They're strong. Everybody who's on a football field is strong. So I don't want to, but there's levels to everything. They not Dexter Lawrence strong. But Dexter Lawrence doesn't have their speed and agility. So these one-on-one players, they use their speed and their agility to be able to beat these tackles. And that's why you want your tackles to be a little bit longer, to have great core and have a little bit better agility so that they can match up best with these defensive ends, because the defensive ends are going to try to attack the quarterback. They're trying their best to get to the quarterback as fast as possible. And so that's what kind of makes up a defensive line. Their job is to rush the football and rush the quarterback. Stop the run, right? If you're a defensive line, your primary thing is to stop the run, pressure the quarterback, control the gaps at the line of scrimmage, and then also occupy blockers. Because sometimes, if I'm Sexy Dex, I'm not actually going to make the play, but if I can occupy a blocker so that somebody else can make the play, then I've also done my job. Defensive line is not an easy position to play. But if you are good, it stands out because of how not easy it is to play. Think about your Jalen Carters. Jordan Davis had a great year last year. Your Dexter Lawrences, your Aaron Donalds, your Vita Veas. Like, it is not easy to play in the middle of the field with the big burly offensive lineman and be good. And if you are good at it, kudos to you. I never take anything away from our defensive linemen, as I would never take anything away from our offensive linemen. Offensive linemen don't be getting a lot of shine. But if you're a good defensive lineman, and that's another way you can get paid. Okay, so let's look at the next position in defense. This is the linebackers. Now, we're going to look at the screen right now. The linebackers are behind the defensive line. So if you are not looking at the screen, you're listening, that's where they line up. They line up behind the defensive line. And there can be a myriad of them. There can only be one, there can be three, there can be four, there can be two. Just, again, kind of depends on the personnel that the defensive coach wants to put in. But they operate but basically between the defensive line and the secondary. And we'll talk about the secondary after this. Okay. Now, what is their responsibilities? Their responsibility also is to stop the run, but also to cover the running back or the tight ends. So we talked about running back, we talked about tight ends. So they're going to be ones who are covering them. So if the running back goes out for a pass, cover them. Ever so often, they will also blitz the quarterback. What does blitz the quarterback mean? It means deny your other responsibilities. Your job is to run as fast as you can and get to that quarterback once the ball is snapped. That's a blitz. And then also they are somewhat like the quarterback of the defense because they're going to communicate defensive adjustments and defensive strategy. So a coach on the sideline might talk to a linebacker who has the green dot on his helmet, give him the play, give him some adjustments. The linebacker is the one who is communicating to the secondary and to the defensive line if there's any adjustments before the play starts. So a very, 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 very important position to have on the field. And a position that if you're great at, you will go into the Hall of Fame. Think about your Ray Lewis's of the world, right? I grew up watching like the Cowboys. And this is crazy to say because I'm an Eagles fan, but if you watch football, I'm a football fan first. I have almost always known the Cowboys for having good linebackers. They just have always had good linebackers. They go get Leighton Vander Esch. He was a good linebacker. They go get these Dat Win. I remember watching Dat Win. Sean Lee. They just go get good linebackers. Now, I do want to have a small caveat here. There are different types of linebackers as well. You have your middle linebackers or inside linebackers. You can have outside linebackers. The outside linebackers are kind of like the ends. They're typically a little bit thinner, and they're better coverers. They can cover the pass a little bit better than the middle linebackers. The middle linebackers are typically best at reading plays, stopping the run, making run stuffs, playing more downhill. The outside linebackers are better at covering passes, and sometimes they can become edge rushers. When we kind of look like Michael Parsons, if you know who Michael Parsons is, he was an outside linebacker who was also an edge rusher and can really go in between both. And Michael Parsons is a special player. So that's not every outside linebacker can be an edge rusher, or a good one at least. I guess all of them can be, but doesn't mean they're going to be good at it. Michael Parsons is good at it. So there you have it. You have your linebackers and you have your defensive linemen. Now let's talk about the secondary. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen to flip to the other game that we were looking at, the Patriots, right? So we're looking at the Patriots and the Panthers. Now your secondary is going to be behind the linebackers, right? The linebackers are behind the defensive line. Your secondary is going to be behind the linebacker. And it's going to consist of cornerbacks and safeties. So this little shell right here, if we're looking at everything that's beyond this shell. So here, and here. That's your secondary. And you can also add this person in if you want to. These people are covering the receivers. We'll talk about cornerbacks first, and then we'll move to safeties. So what is a cornerback? A cornerback is somebody whose primary responsibility is to cover wide receivers and defend passes. Okay, obviously they need to tackle receivers if a receiver makes a catch, or a runner if a runner is running towards them. But their primary thing is to cover receivers, to make sure that the receivers do not make a catch. They're not successful in making that catch. They can play different coverages. They can play man coverage, or they can play zone coverage, right? Man coverage would say, I'm a cornerback. I have number 15 for this play. That's my guy. If 15 runs away from me, I'm running with him. If he goes to me, I'm running to him. If he goes backwards, I'm running forward. Whatever 15 does, I'm going to do. That's man coverage. Zone coverage, they play also, and they say, this is my zone. I have from here to here. And if anybody comes in my zone, I'm responsible for what happens in that zone if the ball is thrown there. And that can get a little bit tricky too. But that's what cornerbacks do. That's who they are. They're typically, cornerback to me is the hardest position to play in football. Most people are going to argue quarterback. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with them so much, but I will disagree with them. Here's why I say cornerback is the hardest position to play. Because at least at quarterback, I know the snap count, I know the play, I know where I think I'm going, right? And if I read the defense correctly, I know where I'm going to put the ball. As a cornerback, it is almost always one-on-one matchup, and you are doing nothing but reacting to a play. And so you have to have your mind and your athleticism be on the same page for you to be a good cornerback. Point blank, period. Everything you do is reactionary. Unless you study well enough, and even then, if you study well enough, you get a good enough quarterback, he gonna beat you too. So everything you do is reactionary. You have to be very good. And if you look at the history of the NFL, you look at NFL right now, if you are a great cornerback, you get paid well. I think Denzel Ward, I don't know if it's Denzel or Denzel. Denzel Ward got paid today. He got the highest cornerback, highest paid cornerback's contract today. That happened earlier today. Because you get big money for having a cornerback. Shout out to the Kenyon Mitchells of the world. Shout out to my boy Coop. Shout out to Darius Slade. Shout out to Revis Island. Shout out to Patrick Surtain. There's a bunch of Jalen Ramsey. I can go down the list of people who are great cornerbacks. It is not a easy. I would never want to play cornerback. I ain't gonna lie to you. I just wouldn't. I got high respect for people who play the position of cornerback, especially for people who are great at that position. I have profound respect for. As an athlete, you're just that guy. Now there's a running joke. I'm gonna let you in on a joke. So in football, there's often times where a cornerback might miss an interception, and people will say that's why he plays cornerback, because he can do everything a receiver can do, but he just can't catch. And that's just a joke, because but it's always funny, right? Anytime a cornerback drops a pass, if you hear that, then now you know what it is. They're like, yeah, he can't. He's playing corner because he couldn't play wide receiver. Hilarious. All right, so then you have a safety. And a safety is exactly what you would think a safety is, right? What is their responsibility? Their responsibility is to protect the deep part of the field, cover receivers and tight ends, support on run defense, and they are the last line of defense. They're also going to commute with the secondary, right? Communicate to the secondary, but they're the last line of defense. That's why they're called the safety. And there's typically two safeties, a free safety and a strong safety. And so later on, we'll kind of talk about what that means, to be free or to be strong, and what their responsibilities are. But at least you know that they're safeties. Even if you don't know which one is a free safety, which one is a strong safety, I want you to walk away from this episode knowing, hey, there's a defensive line. I know what a defensive tackle is, a defensive end. I know that there's a linebacker. I know what a cornerback is, and I know that there's a safety on the field. That's what I want you to walk away with. You stick around for First and Learning, you stick around at Cori's Corner for a while, you will learn the other things. You'll learn what a free safety is, a strong safety, an inside linebacker, an outside linebacker, an edge rusher, a nickel. You will learn all of those things. That's later. Don't worry about that. Just know defensive line, no linebacker, no cornerbacks, no safeties. Right? No secondary. What's secondary? Oh, the secondary is cornerbacks and safeties. Know that. No defensive line. Oh, the defensive line is defensive end and defensive tackles. Know that. Who are the linebackers? Oh, they're behind the defensive linemen. Know that. And then the rest of it will, as we continue to watch football, as we continue to learn, as we continue to love this game, the rest of it will come to us because we'll talk about it and you'll hear different things. And you will actually submit no dumb downs, and we'll talk about it on the show. But that's the defense. Safeties don't typically do one-on-ones like often. They will have one-on-one opportunities, but they don't do one-on-one often or as frequently as the cornerbacks do. They are frequently, again, the defense's last line of defense, their final protection. So shout out to all the safeties out there. As a matter of fact, my favorite player of all time was a safety. His name was Brian Dawkins. He played for the Philadelphia Eagles, Hall of Fame player. From what I understand to be a great man. I've never met him before in my life. I would love to meet him, to have a conversation with him, to eat lunch. When people ask you like, "Oh, what celebrity would you meet?" Mine's always Brian Dawkins. I got Brian Dawkins jerseys in my closet. I love Brian Dawkins. I felt like when I became a fan of football, he played a brand of football that I really enjoyed. It was fast. It was rough. It was it had intent, and you can tell that he studied, and you can tell that he had a passion for the game, and he knew what he was doing. And even if he didn't know what he was doing, he was still playing. He was playing fast and hard, and I just enjoyed that. And I felt like he embodied what the Philadelphia Eagles were, and that's what made me a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles in my formative years. And so, yeah. And then when I hear him talk, he's a very godly man. And so I was like, man, there's people who don't have to sacrifice, being a Christian and being a godly man and also playing this very violent sport. And so that's my journey to like really liking football, and a player who I have attached myself to as being one of my favorite players of all time growing up. But he was a safety, and he was a man. He was one to be feared. Okay, and then I'm just going to explain this one. I want to show you this one. But on special teams, you have the most important major roles are a kicker, a punter, a long snapper, a holder, and the people who are returning it, right? So a kicker is somebody who handles field goals, extra points, and kickoffs. So a field goal is when you are kicking the ball through the uprights for 3 points. And extra points is when they're kicking the ball through the uprights for 1 point. And then a kickoff is when you are on a tee and the kicker is kicking the ball to the other team. Now the person who is doing the kicking is the kicker. Wow. And then you would have a punter, right? That's a different position. Rarely are your kicker and your punter the same person because it's two different skill sets. You would think kicking a ball is just kicking a ball. It is not just kicking a ball. I learned that last year when I was on my road to being able to hit 5 30-yard field goals in a row. I gave up that journey. I might have to rekindle that flame, but kicking the ball and punting the ball are not the same skill. That's not to say that a kicker couldn't punt and a punter couldn't kick. It's just not the same skill. So you typically don't see kickers and punters being the same player. But a punter is somebody who will punt the ball when the offense wants to give the possession over to the opposing team to gain field position. So let's say it's 4th and whatever, and instead of the offense going for a play, they're going to bring their punt team out. That's a special team. And that punter is then going to kick the ball or punt the ball to the other team, hopefully pinning them far enough back so that there's an advantage of field position for their football team. Their meaning the team who punted it. Then you have a long snapper. The long snapper is the person who is designed to deliver specialized snaps to punts, field goals, and extra points. This person is the snapper. He's like the center, but for the kicker and for the punter. You have a holder. The holder is the person who catches the long snap or the field goal snap, because you wouldn't need a holder for a punt. Before a field goal, you need somebody who holds the ball. So the long snapper will snap it to the holder. He will hold it, and then the kicker will kick it. Those 3 people are very important when it comes to a field goal. You really need a good snap, you need a good hold, and you need a good kick. So that's why when people are like, if you've ever watched football and you see a kicker like miss a kick, and your immediate inclination is to blame the kicker and throw your popcorn at the screen and be like, oh, I could have made that kick. Number one, you probably could not have. I'm telling you, kicking the football through the uprights is not an easy feat, okay? It's just not easy. But it may not have actually even been the kicker's fault. It could have been a bad hold, or it could have been a bad snap, which led to a misalignment of the time, right? Or mistiming of the kick. And so the kick wasn't a good kick because it wasn't timed out the way it's supposed to be timed out. It really is a song and a dance when it comes to kicking a field goal, having a snapper snap it to the holder place it at the perfect angle at the perfect time for the kicker to then execute a good kick. So don't immediately get mad at the kicker when the kicker misses the kick. And then you have people who are returning, the ball. So returning kicks, so returning kickoffs and punts. These people, I would like to say they're return specialists. Some of these people don't ever get a lot of playing time in other positions like running backs or wide receiver, even though they may be on the depth chart as that, but they're very good at returning kicks. Think about like a Devin Hester. Devin Hester played plenty of positions. But his best position, I would say that he was at, was returning footballs. When you put him back there to return, man, he just had a skill of catching that ball, finding a lane, and blowing through that lane to go score a touchdown. He's very, very good. And it is very important to have a good return specialist because they will be able to, again, flip the field for you. If the punt team is trying to pin you back deep on your side of the field, and you have a return specialist who can return the ball and net 30, 40, 50 yards, you've just negated what the punter was trying to do in the first place. So that's important to have on your team, is finding somebody who is a good return specialist, right? And so that's really special teams. I don't want to go too much more into special teams because those are probably the most important positions. Is the kicker, the holder, the long snapper, the punter, and then the return specialist. That's basically all you would need to know. Let's get into No Dumb Downs, one of my favorite segments on the show, which is you write into the show. Again, if you want to be featured on this show, you can go anywhere on any of my social media links, go to the link in the bio, click it, you will see the form, submit the question, and then we answer the question. Okay, so we have 3 of them. I might just choose one. Let's see. Oh, this question says, does the quarterback call every play? The answer to this question is no, they don't call every play. Now, there are times where a quarterback may call a play, but they typically don't. So a coach usually sends the play in and gives the quarterback options, right? And the quarterback also has permission to adjust the play. So here's how it may work. And I like to use food sometimes as analogies. So this makes sense. So the quarterback wears a mic in his helmet, or sometimes they have like signals, or they run somebody back and forth to the huddle. And the coach is going to call a play. So the coach is going to say, hey, I want a Big Mac. We're going to line up in a certain formation, and we're going to go Big Mac on 2. And the on 2 means the snap count, right? So hut instead of hut. In the huddle, the quarterback's going to call it, hey, McDonald's Big Mac on 2. And then he's going to go out and he's going to survey the land. He's going to look at the defense. He's going to look at certain personnel. And if everything's good, he's going to snap the ball and they're going to run Big Mac. Now, the coach may also said, hey, we're going to go McDonald's right, Big Mac, kill chicken nuggets on 2. And what he means by that is this. McDonald's right is the formation, Big Mac is the play. But if you don't like Big Mac because they come out in a different formation, you can kill Big Mac and we're gonna run Chicken McNugget on 2 still. Cool. So then quarterback relays that to his team. He gets out to the line. He's about to snap the ball, and he's looking and he's like, "Oh, Big Mac's not gonna work in this formation. I can see what the defense is. It's not gonna work. The defense is gonna stop this. Hey, kill, chicken nugget." He maybe doesn't even have to say chicken nugget. He might just say kill, because you already know what the second play is. As a player, I heard it. It was chicken nugget. So I don't have to say chicken nugget. Kill. Now we're going chicken nugget. I have now just adjusted the play, or I've changed the play because I had options. I might even say kill. Now we're running chicken nugget, but I kind of like the matchup I have on the left side. So I give that receiver an audible. I look at that and I say, hey, extra lettuce. And that receiver knows, because we've practiced whatever extra lettuce is, that on chicken nuggets, he usually has a certain route. Because I told him extra lettuce, he's going to run a different route. And so that's what typically happens on a play in football. That's not what always happens. There are plenty of times where a quarterback does, maybe we're running a hurry-up offense or up-tempo, or quarterback may actually call the play himself. He knows what the plays are. He knows what the scheme is supposed to be. They have practiced what the plays should be in a certain situation. And so the coach feels very confident in him calling the play at the line. The coach still has time to talk in his ear up until a certain amount of time. But yeah, there are times where the quarterback calls plays, but it's not every play. More often than not, the coaches will usually send in a play or two, and then the quarterback will have an option to change if he wants to change, and he has permission to make certain adjustments, which we would call audibles. That's a great question. Okay, like I said, no dumb downs. Thank you for whoever submitted that. That was anonymous. Great question. All right. Thank you for this. Has been 50 minutes. This is great, perfect timing for an episode. I hope that if you had a long commute to work or a 50-minute commute to work, you're just now getting to work and you're like, okay, cool. This was a good episode. I learned something today. I just want to recap. Today we talked about the 3 units of the game. We talked about offense, we talked about defense, and we talked about special teams, right? Offense moves the ball, defense prevents scoring and tries to regain possession, and the special team is the person who manages kicks and field position, right? And then we learned all of the positions in each one of those units. So you should know by now, this is what the positions are for offense, this is what the position is for defense, this is what the positions are for certain special teams. We talk about our kickers and our punters and stuff like that. And here's the thing. This was a lot of information. I could have broke this episode down and just did offense, and then did another episode about just defense, and then did another episode about special teams. Hey, you don't have to memorize these positions immediately, okay? That's not what I want you to do. What I want you to do is this. Football season is right around the corner, and we are going to be watching games and using them for opportunities to grow, to explain, to challenge ourselves. And I'm going to use this as a shameless plug right now. I have not even announced this yet, but I'm going to announce it here. I'm on a platform called Buzzer, BZZR. During the year, during the football season, I will actually be telecasting football games. So when the football game is on, you can join live and watch the game and learn the game as I am talking and commenting through the game. And we'll be actually going over these things. Like, when I don't want you to know everybody. I just want you to start with identifying the quarterback, identify the offensive line. I'm going to ask questions. Who's the receiver right now? Name a receiver number. Put it in the chat. This is how we're going to learn the game. We're going to watch the game. We're going to see it that way. And the more we go over the season, the more you stick around, the more you will start to see the game more in depth, and we'll start asking harder questions. When they come out, I'm going to say, hey, what personnel are they in? Hey, they just did this. Why would they do that? Then at some point, I promise you, I can almost promise you, the more football you watch, you're going to start predicting plays. You're going to start seeing the game differently and be like, oh, they're going to run right here, run right here, run left right here. Oh, this is wide open. And if you go to a football game, because the TV kind of shrinks it down for you, you're going to be able to see stuff wide open before it happens, and you're going to feel like a quarterback. That should be the slogan of the show, feel like a quarterback. Because you're going to be able to see things before they happen, and it's such a great way to watch the game because you're looking at it through the perspective of a player and a coach at the same time, and a fan. And you'll be able to watch your team in the way that you've always wanted to watch your team. That is the basis of the show. That's the premise of the show. Okay? I love y'all. I thank you for being around. God is love. I love all. Come back to the next episode, and we're going to talk some ball. Peace out.